Hello, everyone. My name is Skylar, and I'm here to talk to you about Jamf Protect. God damn, that joke did not land. No, my name is Skylar. I'm from ActiveCampaign. I came to Chicago, or I came to ActiveCampaign a year and a half ago as the first person in the IT department at ActiveCampaign. We ended up having like a really big goal this year, which was to get our SOC 2 certification. And a year and a half ago, we had absolutely nothing. So I came to ActiveCampaign knowing that they were in the marketing technology or MarTech space, but not really understanding what that they do. I was very fortunate to end up working somewhere where they teach every employee what the product is that they make and how to use it. That's actually very similar to Jamf in that all Jamf employees, I believe, go through like the Jamf 200 course. So it was really cool to see what this tool can do. So I do want to start out with this, that I will be talking about the ActiveCampaign product, but my intention isn't to sell you on it, but for you to look at all of the different pieces that you have in your IT stack and how you can integrate them together. So what we're going to be talking about is what is a customer relationship manager and email marketing, what does it mean for your IT department, what we did with this, which was rolling out Okta in 5 business days, how we did that, and what more could we do with that. So, customer relationship manager, what does this have to do with IT? So, one of our core values at ActiveCampaign is that we put our customer success before our own. And when you are a one-person IT department, your employees that you're supporting, those are effectively your internal customers. And with marketing automation, that is about sending the right message to those customers at the right time. So for those of you who aren't sure what a CRM is, here's a brief example of what ours looks like. This is what a task might look like, where I have something that says, call me because I've been laid off. I need to return the computer to the company, as the example that I have here. In addition to that, these individual tasks that you can have on people, you can also have things laid out in like a Kanban-style board. So for those of us who are familiar with using Jira or other project management tools, the difference with this is that instead of having individualized tickets that are about the overall project that you're doing and what state that they are in, this is about breaking things down into the human aspect of those projects. So customer relationship management and marketing automation. What this is about, we're using a new concept right now called customer experience automation. And right now, if you're a Jamf Pro customer, this is something that you're already doing with your clients. So if you're pushing out software updates for users that they don't even see, or if you're allowing people to leverage self-service in order to get what they need to use their computer properly, these are all different aspects of customer experience automation. At ActiveCampaign, we use this as a email marketing automation tool. And here's just sort of like a brief layout of if-else statements that you can write and actions that you want to do as you have a contact work through that flow. And I'm going to talk way more about this when we break down what exactly it is that I did when rolling out Okta. So the challenge was getting SSO and endpoint management. So a history with this is that from June of last year through the beginning of January, we had absolutely nothing. Every computer was manually set up for all the individuals. All accounts for all services were manually made. We were using 1Password to manage these accounts and accept those invitations on the employee's behalf, which isn't really efficient for anyone's use of time. When I joined ActiveCampaign, we were at 250 employees, and at the time that we did this full rollout, we were just over 350, and today we're at 550. And at the time of the rollout, I had been the longest person in the IT department, having been there for about 7 months, and I also had a manager who joined me who had been there for about 1 month at the time that we went live with this. So the thing that I do want to say is that I know that I'm positioning this as rolling out Okta in 5 business days. That's rolling it out to your users and having them all sign up for it. Often I hear that the problem with SSO adoption or endpoint management adoption is user acceptance and getting them to actually do the needful action to do in their tool. That being said, before we even get to this completion timeline, you still have a few weeks of prep. So obviously, you're going to have the testing and configuration that you're going to have of your SSO platform, deciding how you want that to be designed, and also more importantly, the buy-in from other departments. So before we even started communicating this with people, we were having communications, with managers in other departments, making sure that they understood the importance of this, as well as making sure that they can get their employees to participate in this. So before we break this down, I started off this talk saying that I wanted you to think about all the different pieces that you had in your IT stack. And I was fortunate enough to not have any of the pieces connected together. How many of you have heard of HR-driven identity and access management in the room? So a handful of you. So HR-driven IAM makes a lot of sense because who's going to know the most information about your employees? Your HR team. They should, in theory, be the ones to know before someone quits or is hired, or if their job title changes or if their name changes. Granted, this isn't always true, so I've seen in real life, but they should be the ones who are in control of that. I've seen this at other organizations. At my previous org, there was an integration with our HR system and our IAM tools. But that was a manual process, and it wasn't quite as modern as what we have today with HR-driven IAM, which is if somebody is marked as terminated, in our case, namely, that they can have all of their provisioned access taken away via SAML and SCIM. The reason why I bring this up, though, is that this piece was very crucial for what this workflow was. So we use Namely at ActiveCampaign, and there's a native integration between Namely and Okta. From there, we started activating the user activations part of Okta, immediately started building out Active Directory as a part of this, since that did not yet exist. And then using the user activation at the same time that we're able to provision app access instantaneously for our users, we were then able to use the ActiveCampaign platform to have a communication and call for action for our users to sign up and actually use Okta. So what does this look like? What did we actually do? We were sending communications to make sure that our users were aware that they still needed to sign up for Okta, and we were tracking their behavior of this using the Customer Relationship Manager, so using both of these pieces at once. Again, just a little bit of the different tools that we were using. In it, there are some things, though, that you are going to have to fill in the blanks yourself. So between Okta and the ActiveCampaign platform, there isn't a native integration, so we use the Zapier for that. And then I bring up Jamf Pro because that is still the missing piece that we have for our readiness for our SOC 2 certification, and I'll get into a little bit of that as we move forward. So now for the how we're actually doing this. In my instance of the ActiveCampaign platform, I did not have the contacts of any of our employees in there. So what we ended up doing was via Zapier, we were able to update our attributes within the ActiveCampaign platform. So what is your name? What is your job title? What is your email address here at ActiveCampaign? Then continuing to use Zapier, we were able to update the workflow of the communication and tracking via the Okta API, specifically the event log API, and triggering webhooks with that to then move people along within our workflow. And what this ultimately did was we were reminding the user that they needed to do this continually until they did it. So how does this start off? Let's make a deal. So our CRM platform is called Deals. It is primarily focused for small and medium businesses and as a sales tool. So each time we make an action in our platform, it is called a deal. And how did we make that? So as I was mentioning before, we were using Zapier to integrate this. And at this first step here, it is simply just a retrieve pull from within Zapier. So like every 5 minutes, it is going out to Okta and saying, what is the current event log for the action user is staged and pending activation. We're then able to pull from that log and say that we have the user's name of, I'll use me as an example, Skylar Damiano, sdamiano@activecampaign.com. We're going to create that contact, and then we're going to create the deal in ActiveCampaign. What this ended up building was on my Kanban board of user activation. At the leftmost side, we ended up having this stage of all of our users getting ready to activate Okta. So we know that these are going to be the people that we are going to send out the communication to have them activate their accounts. Now, what about the communication aspect of this? What does that actually mean? The way that we did this was that we ended up pulling everybody in to this on a Friday and activated their accounts in Okta the following Monday. So this is the beginning of what my communication workflow looks like. And at the top of it, where is the laser pointer? Is it that button? Yes. So at the top of it, right here is the contact enters the stage Okta activation. This right here is my Okta activation pipeline, just for clarity with that. So that very first Zapier step was adding people into this. This we did, again, on a Friday, and immediately we sent them an email saying, send an email being like, hey, Okta activation is coming. After we sent this email, the next step was to wait until the user is in the stage pending user activation. And what that is within Okta, and I'm very sorry for jumbling this, within Okta, there are a couple stages for a user. You can import a large number of users and not activate them quite yet. You're getting them ready for that activation step. This is currently where we live in this workflow. We're going to wait until we have the user in the second step of the pipeline, pending user activation in Okta. And what we're going to do with that is on Monday morning, we're going to click Activate in Okta. So me as the administrator activated the user, but the end user has not activated their account yet. And by that, I mean have them sign in and actually create a password for the platform. With the communication workflow, how did we end up getting to the second stage, right? The one that is currently hidden behind here. How did we actually know that they were going to be ready for a user activation? That Monday morning, so again, this is all a 5 business day period of time. That Monday morning, I got into work, I went to my Okta platform, and I clicked on that Activate button for 350 employees at ActiveCampaign. What we did was we built a retrieve pull within Zapier, and what that is doing is it was going to go out, look at the Okta log API, and then see all of the user activated steps in there. We pulled the text from there, knowing that everybody has an associated email address, and then within ActiveCampaign, we ended up doing a create update contact and where we added a tag. So on my contact page, we ended up adding this tag that says Okta Activate. That means that they have activated the platform, and within this separate automation that I've built, we're moving them ahead in our Kanban board. So now we're moving the users to this second step right here. They are pending user activation. We've activated them in Okta. All of the people that were on this left-hand side have been now moved over into this board, which then brought us to this wait condition. We're going to put the users here. Once they reach this step, we're going to move forward. And immediately underneath that, we have this step that is to wait 1 day. So on Friday, we sent them the initial communication. Hey, this is coming. You're going to get an email from Okta that is going to tell you that you need to create your account. On Monday, we ended up creating the Okta account. But they got that email from Okta. They did not need to get another communication from us at the IT department, because that would have been just one too many communications that day. So we put this second wait condition here. This put us until Tuesday, which then brought us to this next step right here. And I do apologize for this being a little bit difficult to read on the board. But what I ended up building with this automation was, does the contact match the condition? User still pending are we still pending user activation? We've already activated them from Okta. Yes, they still haven't created a password. Great. We're going to send them a reminder email, and then the next day we're going to wait and then see if they meet that condition again. And we're going to do this for the rest of the work week. The ultimate goal is that they will complete this, and we will stop sending these communications. Just as a bit of an example, because this is an email marketing platform, you do have the full leverage of HTML for the emails that you're sending. I am not an HTML coder. I'm very fortunate to have a nice marketing team that was able to build this template for me, but I could change the copy on it saying like, hey, you should have received this email. We need you to do this by this date. If you need help, please reach out to us and we will take care of that for you. And then again, they receive this email a couple of times. How do we get off of this crazy ride for communicating to them? Well, simple. Another retrieve pull we built in Zapier, and as I was mentioning before, the Okta API puts users in different steps. So activate doesn't mean that they've signed in. It just simply means that we've made them as an active user in Okta. There's no password created or something like that. At the time that we did this, we ended up using the event from the API that was user signed in. So we looked to see if a user had signed in, because that meant that they created their password. We then added, once the user signed in, so I created my password, I've signed in, we're going to add a tag to my contact that's Okta activated. And we're going to follow the exact same workflow from how we moved somebody to that second step in my Kanban board, and move them to the third step, which is they are activated, and we will move people to this step of the Kanban board. So again, we're able to see actively who did this action, who still needs to follow up, who's going to be our stragglers in this process. Ultimately, if they meet that condition, we build this end stage that will take them out of the communication. No matter where they are in this workflow, this goal will move the user to this spot, and they will stop receiving emails from the way that this was built. So ultimately, what this ended up being was that of all of the users who were currently present at ActiveCampaign during that week, so we're not taking into account anybody who was sick or on PTO for the entirety of that week, but all 100% of our present employees ended up doing their needful action because of this communication, and the vast majority of them completed this by Wednesday. So again, something that I've heard a lot of, especially from other orgs that have tried to roll out Okta or something similar like that, this is something that is usually difficult because it is the human aspect of it, of getting your user to do their needful action. So how can we take this further? Great, we have everyone in Okta. We now have a way for them to sign into their email the next week when we integrate G Suite into Okta. Everything's really great, but we still needed to manage our fleet. And this is, again, for SOC 2 readiness, which I'm very excited that last week we got that officially and that we're able to say that. But this is where Jamf Pro comes in. So I have done 2 jumpstarts at 2 different companies, and actually both of my jumpstart people are in this room, which is really great. But we knew that this was sort of the missing piece in order to manage our fleet. But we were a company at that point that's completely Mac, and it wasn't feasible for us to, rotate these computers when we don't know what they are. We don't know if they're all in DEP quite yet because these were all purchased, before we had an IT presence. So how do we get people in there? Well, obviously user-initiated enrollment. And now that we have Okta as our tool, using Okta as the sign-in for user-initiated enrollment allows us to actually assign the device in Okta to that user based off their email address. We've already built in an LDAP integration between Jamf and our Active Directory that we were building literally the week beforehand by activating all of our users. So let's do another marketing automation to encourage our users to enroll in Jamf and track their completion in the CRM. But this time, I'm going to take this a little further. I'm going to reward our users for their participation because we put them through a lot in the past couple of weeks, right? We really kind of told them that they had to do this thing. Now we're asking them to do another thing. They might, think that we're being a little annoying. So at this point, I've built a second automation within the ActiveCampaign platform, and this time you're going to notice that the layout of it is much more linear. The reason why I am bringing this up is that at this point, I had other people who were more familiar with automation workflows, more computer science sort of ways of thinking, and by building something that is more linear and streamlined, where we have this end goal at the end of the automation instead of constantly checking for different conditions to move forward, we were able to build something that was more efficient on the system. So in this case, you're going to see that in here we have a 2-day wait condition, and that was because we wanted to give people a 2-week period to sign into Jamf, or to enroll their computer in Jamf. So again, how do we know that they signed into Jamf, right? And also, why do they need to do this? Just as a little example, this is just the communication that we send out. Why is this important? Why do they need to sign in? What do they do? How can they get help? All of that information in there. Again, I do apologize for this. But just as a brief overview with this, we did, again, this way, with this communication, this was the way that we let our users know more information about what we're doing to their computer, building the trust that we have with them, everything of that like, including more information for how to do UIE depending on what version of macOS that they were on. We had that information in Confluence. But now that we've sent this information to them, how do we know that they ended up enrolling their computer in Jamf? Again, using Zapier and the Jamf API, we were able to build a webhook that we ended up titling at this point, or with the webhook ID, computer added. So this is one of the standard webhooks that is in Jamf Pro. When a computer is added via user-initiated enrollment, they sign in with their Okta credentials. That meant that we had an email address associated with the user, which then we knew in the ActiveCampaign platform if they signed in or not. So again, breaking down a little bit more of that, what do we do? At the second step of updating a contact, we're going to add a tag that says Jamf enrolled. And we're going to just look for this. Do they have this tag Jamf enrolled? If they do, great. We're going to end the automation. We're going to send them a thank you email and take them out of the communication. If they did not sign up in a timely manner, we will put this in this sort of field with the failure to enroll field within the CRM, and then we will then follow up with them at their desk or something like that to get them to enroll their computer into Jamf. As I was mentioning, this time I wanted it to be a little bit different to reward the user. So this was the email that we sent at the end of it. This is our mascot. I apologize that the GIF is not moving, but we had our mascot waving, saying thank you. And just as a little bit of evidence that that rewarding your users does work, 96% of our users, or 94% I should say, of our users who ended up enrolling in Jamf ended up opening this email, ended up being the talk of the office. People are very excited about this. So that's great, but what else could we do? So at this point within the ActiveCampaign platform, we've built in what is your username, what is your name, what is your department, all this information. What more can we do? Well, every computer in Jamf has a unique ID with it, the JSS ID number, right? Why don't we input that into the ActiveCampaign platform? So if we need to leverage communication to specific users based off needful action that they need to do on their computer, we can then talk to them further. So here's an example of what a contact looks like in the ActiveCampaign platform. As I was mentioning, we have all the different sort of fields that we have that I was mentioning before. But now we've added this computer number this computer number field. Mine's number 4 because we had 3 test machines, and then I ended up being the first production unit in during the jumpstart. So how do we get that information in? Since this was sort of an afterthought after enrolling all of the computers, I ended up building another webhook within my JSS at the computer check-in point. So this webhook was running every time a computer checked into the Jamf Pro server, ended up pushing to Zapier, and we were able to get what the JSS ID number was and the username that was associated with that computer. However, something that I do want to mention with this is that this is not the wisest approach. As I was mentioning, this was sort of an afterthought. This was something that I should have done in the initial step as computers were enrolling in, because this can be costly. So what I hope that you can take away from this is, A, don't make the same costly mistake that I did, but B, if you're more familiar with the Jamf API, or if you're comfortable with building actual queries and building a cron server to actually do this for you, there are cheaper and more efficient ways to do this. So as I was mentioning with this was just as simple as from that actual action, the event ID, we have the number there. We are then able to update a contact and push that in there, and Zapier is able to add that in. So what do we do with this? So at this point, in 5 days, we got everyone enrolled in Okta. The 10 days following after that, we got everybody enrolled into the Jamf Pro server. We now actually know what our fleet looks like. So what was terrifying about this was the amount of computers at the time that weren't even on Mojave. We had a large amount of computers that were still on 10.12 iterations of macOS, and we needed to get them upgraded in order for us to actually have a security posture. So we ended up building an automated workflow for Mojave to be cached on a machine and that it could be installed via self-service. And we wanted to let users know that they have this available to them and that they should do this. So in the Jamf Pro interface, I ended up having a smart group for the Mojave installers cached. With the Mojave installer being cached, I was able to export a CSV and know exactly what JSS ID numbers were exported from that. So with that information, I built a campaign to send to my end user employees. From my current employees list, I then created a segment of this list. And what this segment was it was just simply a search for the field computer number. And then all of the following, and then we were able to just paste in the computer numbers from that export that we did from the JSS, and then send them a communication that was like, hey, macOS Mojave is available for you. This is how you can install it. It's super easy to do. Maybe do it at the end of the day because it might take an hour to install. But because we did a one-time campaign with this, we were able to see the amount of people who actually opened that email and then compare that to the people who ended up installing Mojave on their machines, which then meant we could get a better understanding of our users and knowing how they're interacting with the platform. So that's great. What did we learn with all of this? Your IT user base is going to be your customer base. Enticing communication is going to lead to action from the end users, and that's really important because without that, they're not going to do anything for you. All human aspects should be tracked in this way because they can easily be tracked in a CRM. And any follow-up emails that any of you have to do, you can automate that. So at my previous organization, I worked somewhere that had 1,800 employees, and we thought about 250 of them had Macs. We weren't really entirely sure with that. So we ended up having all these spreadsheets of everything exported from Active Directory for machines that were allegedly bound, and trying to find these users all over the world to get them to enroll. By taking all this information, I did not have to check all of this in a spreadsheet and then go into an email and then look at all of this. And also, the last thing that I do want to say with this, consider all of your building blocks and get creative piece. This goes back to my HR-driven identity access management piece, right? So like if I didn't even have Namely, I wouldn't have been able to do all of this without manually importing everybody's name somewhere from like an exported CSV from HR or something like that. So when you consider all the building blocks that you have, you're able to really see how all of your tools that you have are flowing and building together. So challenges that you may face with this, you do need a good understanding of the tools that you have. So most of us in this room, I am assuming, are very comfortable with various forms of Mac management software and that you know them, you think, like the back of your hand. So think about that and think about those different aspects and how you can build them together. You will need to know how to build your own integrations when necessary. So in some cases, using Zapier is very easy for that. I don't know anything about JSON or APIs or anything like that. Zapier was good enough to be able to actually, take an incoming webhook, and then you can look at that data and parse it and figure out what you want to do with that. And that gets to my last point with you. No matter what, with any of the deployments that you're going to do, you do need to know the technical limitations of either the tool itself or what you may have with your own knowledge or power that you have. And then what I really hope that you do gain from all of this is, most importantly, trust of your user base. We were asking a lot. Like, when you have a company that's been around for 16 years, and of that time, there were about 20 employees up until 5 years ago, and now you're at 250 and everything's still running like you have 20 employees there. You need to gain their trust to say, hey, we need to do this so that we can accomplish something that will help us make more money in the long run, because more customers we'll have SOC 2, we'll be able to sign on more people. So building that trust and not just coming in saying, we're doing this whether you like it or not, you can do that with enticing communication. And again, with this, I do hope that you gain a better understanding of your overall stack that you have and a sense of accomplishment when you're done with all of this. So thank you for this. If you would like a less rambly explanation of this, we do have a blog post on our website that is specifically about this, how an IT specialist got 100% staff compliance in less than a week. This will break down more and more of that information. You can go to, I believe it's blog.activecampaign.com or activecampaign.com/blog. This is listed under here in the Spotlight section. Thank you for your time. Any questions? Yes? No? Thank you. Q&A? Yes? No? Cool. All right. Thank you for listening.